Alright, Insights channel, Steve here again, and today I'm going to read from my book Enoch Insights, and this is the amazing conversation where God sent Enoch to go and talk to the fallen angels on the earth. This has never happened before or since, where God used a man to address directly Satan or the fallen angels and tell them off. We don't have the power to do that. We can rebuke Satan in the name of Jesus, but we don't have the power to talk to him. Very dangerous thing to do. So, it starts in chapter 12, verse 2. And I, Enoch, was blessing the Lord of mercy, the King of ages, and lo, the watchers called me. This time it's talking about the good watchers in heaven. Enoch, scribe of righteousness, and go declare unto the watchers of the heaven, which have left the high heaven, and holy eternal place, defile themselves with women, and have done as the children of the earth do, and have taken on themselves wives, you have wrought great destruction on the earth, and you shall have no peace for forgiveness of sin, inasmuch as they delight themselves in their children, and the murder of their beloved ones shall they see. And over the destruction of their children shall they lament, and make supplication unto eternity, but no mercy and peace shall ye not attain. Chapter 30, verse 1. And Enoch went and said, Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels, thou shalt have no peace. A severe sentence has gone forth against thee, to put thee in bonds, and thou shalt have no toleration, nor request granted to thee, because of the unrighteousness which thou hast taught, and because of all the works of godlessness and unrighteousness and sin which thou hast shown to men. Comment number 1. No forgiveness, because they had already rejected Jesus, God's only begotten Son, before the creation of earth, while still in heaven or in pre-Adamic times. Yeah, that's a big topic in itself, which I won't get into right now, but it's very interesting. You can prove that too. Verse 2. Then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid. Fear, trembling seized them. And he besought me to draw up a petition for them, that they might find forgiveness, to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of heaven. It's interesting in that movie Noah, which I don't like at all, didn't see it, but I saw bits of it. But I saw that there were fallen angels in there who were trying to get God to forgive them for what they'd done wrong. The truth is, God didn't forgive them. He wouldn't forgive them, because they destroyed the earth with their lawlessness and madness and sanity. Comment 2. Here it is evident the fallen angels had lost some of their former powers and abilities. They could not speak with God anymore, nor lift up their voices to heaven for shame of their sins, for which they're being condemned. Comment 3. Most dangerous thing that any of us on earth can do is to repeatedly resist God's Holy Spirit. Proverbs 29:1. He that being often reproved and hardens his neck will suddenly be destroyed, that without remedy. Verse 4. Then I wrote out their petition. That was as Enoch writing down the petition of the fallen angels, and the prayer in regard to their spirits and their deeds individually, and in regard to their requests, they should have forgiveness and length of days. And I went off and sat down at the waters of Dan, which is in the land of Dan, to the south of the west of Hermon. And I read their petition and fell asleep. Hermon is to the very extreme north, in the tribe of Dan, the extreme north of Israel, Mount Hermon. Land of Dan, near Mount Hermon. Later in time, the location of the lost 13th tribe of Israel. Verse 5. And behold, a dream came to me, and visions fell upon me. I saw visions of chastisement, and a voice come bidding me to tell it to the sons of heaven, and reprimand them, in this case the fallen angels. And when I awoke, I came unto them, and they all sitting gathered together, weeping in Abijail, which is between Lebanon and Senessa, with their faces covered. And I recounted before them all the visions which I had seen in sleep, and I began to speak the words of righteousness and to reprimand the heavenly watchers. Enoch was given unusual powers from God to reprimand the fallen angels right to their faces. No one in history has repeated that. I certainly wouldn't like to try that one. Chapter 14. The book of the words of righteousness, of the reprimand of the eternal watchers, in accordance with the command of the Holy Great One in that vision. I saw in my sleep what I will now say with the tongue of flesh, and with the breath of my mouth, which the Great One has given to men to converse therewith, understand with the heart. Comment 1. Tongue of flesh. Here Enoch is making the point that he is still in a human body, not a spirit or heavenly body, at least not quite yet. Verse 2. As he hath created and given to man the power of understanding, the word of wisdom, so hath he created me also, and given the power of reprimanding the watchers, the children of heaven. I wrote out your petition, and in my vision it appeared thus: Your petition will not be granted unto you throughout all the days of eternity, and the judgment has been finally passed upon you. Yea, your petition will not be granted unto you, and from henceforth you shall not ascend into heaven unto all eternity. And the bonds of the earth, the decree is gone forth to bind you for all the days of the world. Job 1:6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Comment 2. In the book of Job, it is made clear that both Satan and other sons of God, or angels, could appear before the throne of God. However, these first 200 angels that fell were to be bound for all the days of the earth, 7,000 years, and they would no longer be allowed to ascend into heaven. 4. And that previously you shall have seen the destruction of your beloved sons, and ye shall have no pleasure in them, but they shall fall before you by the sword. And your petition on their behalf shall not be granted, nor yet on your own, even though you weep and pray and speak all the words contained in the writing which I have written. Comment 3. These first 200 fallen angels are to witness their own sons, the giants, fighting one another until they make a complete end of each other, at least in the physical world of flesh. When the sons died, they became the origin of the demon spirits, or the disembodied spirits of the giants. Verse 5. And a vision was shown to me thus: Behold, in the vision clouds invited me, and a mist summoned me, and the course of the stars and lightning sped and hastened me, and the winds in the vision caused me to fly, and lifted me upward, bore me into heaven. An unusually descriptive and beautiful verse of being borne up into heaven. Verse 6. And I went in till I drew nigh to a wall which is built of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire, began to affright me. And I went into the tongues of fire, drew nigh to a large house which is built of crystals, and the walls of the house were like tessellated floor, made of crystals, and its groundwork was of crystal. Tessellated floor, or mosaic, crystals and tongues of fire. Ezekiel 1:22. And the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creature was the colour of the terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads above. Acts 2:3. And it appeared unto them cloven tongues as of fire, sat upon each one of them. Verse 7. Its ceiling was like the path of the stars and the lightnings, and between them were the fiery cherubim. That's the four beasts, of course. And their heaven was clear as water, and a flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portals blazed with fire. There I mention of portals again. And I entered into that house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no delights of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got a hold upon me. As I quaked and trembled, I fell upon my face, and behold a vision, and lo, there was a second house, greater than the former. The entire portal stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. Comment 7. How could a house be hot as fire, and yet cold like ice? No delights of life. That's a mystery. Certainly does not sound like an inviting place. Comment 8. The second house, a portal stood open. Enoch mentions portals frequently. Some apparently spiritual, others apparently physical gateways or doors to other places. Revelation 4:1. After this I looked, and behold, a door was open in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was it were a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, I'll show you things which must be hereafter. Verse 9. In every respect it so excelled in splendid magnificence and extent that I cannot describe to you its splendid extent. Its floor was of fire, and above it were lightnings, and the path of the stars, and its ceiling also was flaming fire. Comment 9, Revelation 4:5. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices. Verse 10. And I looked and saw there a lofty throne. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof of the shining sun. There was a vision of cherubim, and from underneath the throne came streams of fire, so that I could not look thereon. And a great glory sat thereon, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, was whiter than any snow. Ezekiel 1:13. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of lamps. And it went up and down among the living creatures. Fire was bright, out of the fire went forth lightning. Daniel 7:9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like a fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Revelation 1:14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire. Revelation 1:15. And his feet like unto fine brass, as though they burned in a furnace. The voice is the sound of many waters. Revelation 4:6. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, round about the throne, were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. Verse 11. None of the angels could behold his face by reason of the magnificence and glory. No flesh could behold him. The flaming fire was round about him, and a great fire stood before him, and none around could draw nigh him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, yet he needed no counselor. Comment 10. Here are some excellent Bible verses which concur. Daniel 7:10. Fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Revelation 1:16. And out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword. His countenance was sunshiners in his strength. Revelation 7:9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand. Revelation 7:15. Therefore are they before the throne of God, serve him day and night in his temple. He that sits on the throne shall dwell among them. Verse 12. And the most holy ones who were nigh to him did not leave by night nor depart from him. And until then I had been prostrated on my face, trembling. And the Lord called me with his own mouth and said to me, Come hither, Enoch, hear my word. And one of the holy ones came to me and waked me, and he made me rise up and approach the door, and I bowed my face downwards. Daniel 7:15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit and in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. Revelation 1:17. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. He laid his right hand upon me, saying unto me, Fear not, I am the first and the last. This story will be continued in the next video. So thanks for listening, and I would encourage people to get my Insights books, which are all based on Apocryphal books, or if they're not Apocryphal books, they're ancient Hebrew books like JASHER and JUBILEES and Enoch. I do encourage people to get my Insights books, of which there are now 8 of them, and also my 2 paranormal books, Out of the Bottomless Pit 1 and 2. Thanks again for listening. Bye for now.